Hey everybody, I'm Ryan Doyle, and this is the Verdigris Table, where I had the chance to sit down with Jason Presson, the man behind the wonderful YouTube channel Ravenlore, for a round of D20 Questions. Jason's super deep passion really shines through on this one, and we got into the longest lightning round we've had to date, so I have split our conversation into two videos. This one's going to cover the talk show, and the next time you'll get to see us cook up an explorer using the Game Master's Compendium of Explosive Creation, which is now available on the Dungeon Masters Guild. Link down below. Oh, hey, you might have noticed my awesome new t shirt from Into the AM. They were kind enough to send me a couple of their elevated everyday graphic tees, which not only have beautiful designs, they also just feel great too. Use my link in the description to get a 10% discount, and you can make your own bundles and save even more. You'll also find links down there to all the references we make during this video. There's a bunch of books and games and videos worth checking out in this one. And of course, my Patreon is also down there. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me doing more of it, there it is. All right, on with the show. Let's get spooky with this one.
Okay. Can do. Spooky at 2:15 on a Monday.
That's your wheelhouse. You got the lighting for it.
Mm-hmm.
You got the
Yeah.
color scheme.
Yeah.
Uh, hey
It's
everybody, welcome back to the Verdigris Table D20 Questions, where I am super excited to finally, we've been talking about this for a little bit, finally sit down with Jason from Ravenlore. Jason, what's the deal, man? What should people know about you going into this thing?
first of all, Ron, thank you for having me here. I appreciate it. My name's Jason, obviously. Redundancy is a good thing. And run a D&D Ravenloft centric channel called Ravenlore, and it's as the name implies, it's just a channel where we discover old Ravenloft lore from older settings, and you can take it and keep it as it is and play the older stuff, or you could take all this old information and apply it to Curse of Strahd or whatever you want to do. We are, even though it's Ravenloft, we're kind of setting neutral. So
Mhm.
it's just I present the information. You can use it either as it's written, 2E, 3E, 4E, or fifth edition, or even take it to whatever system you're running. So I tend to stay away from mechanics too much, but just focus on the stories and the characters and the lore, the setting, the very rich lore of the setting. So
I
yeah.
mean, this answer in the comments what your favorite setting is, but I think the winner generally is Ravenloft, like perennially. Everything these days is Forgotten Realms, Forgotten Realms, Forgotten Realms, but um, not everybody's favorite. I know there's some Dragonlance folks off in there. I kind of missed that boat a little bit, bounced off of that, but woof, Ravenloft is like, and it's funny in the YouTube parlance, you want to niche down, you want to
Hmm.
get specific so people know what they're coming to. I've failed to do that in the last year or so because the internet exploded, or the D&D internet exploded. But man, I was really, seeing your name, seeing you in the top 50, which we'll talk about in a second, the happy birthday D&D video. I was like, oh, cool. He's like, this guy's into Ravenloft. If he's like named the channel, it's like, nope, all Ravenloft all the time. It's like, damn, that's good.
Hmm.
So good, definitely check it out. Links where links happen. Production values, man, kind of put me to shame. So
Oh, no, I appreciate that. That's one thing
yeah.
I wanted to do was like everybody who likes D&D, but what I wanted to do is kind of people who are even just, oh, what is this? And they just can watch it and enjoy it for what it is, like a story with good production value. And I put a lot of time and effort into it, which means that I don't pump out a lot, which is which is a little rough when you're trying to get a YouTube channel going. But if I can get one in a month, I'm actually doing good. But they are very laborious. It's a lot of work, but I enjoy it. I enjoy it, and each one is their own little work of art. I've gotten to the point where I sort of know where my assets are now, and I've gotten used to all of my the what do you call it, the software. So I'm starting now to get used to it. So hopefully these things start going out, getting cranked out a little bit more. But yeah, I don't want to just get stuff out there to get stuff out there. I really consider them a work of art unto themselves. So hopefully that comes across.
100%. I was about to say it shows that there's a lot of work going into those. Yeah, I work very hard on my scripts,
Hmm.
and then I say those words. Um,
Hey,
but
if people haven't tried to do this. There is even just talking head pieces. There's a lot of work that goes
Oh,
into
sure.
creating content. You know, it's not just I'm just gonna sit down in front of a mic and fake it because that there's never enough behind that to sustain, you know, anything long term because that would be too easy. But no, that's even with this show, the D20 questions, and then the stuff that you've put out. I watched a lot of it, and kudos, you do a fantastic job at what you do.
Well,
So no, don't sell yourself short there.
thank you, thank
No
you.
problem, no problem.
Yeah, you are awesome at the stuff that I don't even attempt too often. I do put like visual aids on the screen, but like
Hmm.
you said art, and that is, I don't think that is overselling it. You are making art over there. So
Thank you.
everybody go check out Ravenlore.
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah, even if Dragonlance is your favorite setting, still come out and check out Ravenlore.
especially if you think Dragonlance is your favorite thing. No, I'm not trying to start
No, no,
a
don't
setting
don't
war.
don't start a
Um,
setting war. They're all good in their own right. Besides, that's what did in TSR. Setting wars is what killed TSR. So they managed to compete against themselves in like 16 different directions. So
Well, there's this interesting, like, flavor and mechanics are two separate things, and
hmm.
in good systems, good iterations, they connect very well. But there's nothing saying you can't pull Ravenlore and put it into
Sure.
any mechanical setting or any world really. I like
Hmm.
the mists roll in, and all of a sudden you wake up. You were sleeping in the woods, and you wake up, and the woods are very different, and all of a sudden we're running a whole different campaign.
All of a sudden you'd stumble upon a house and you go in there and next thing you know you're trapped in there for 100 years. And yeah, that's actually one of my I don't know if it's too early to get into this, but one of my first not introductions, but one of the first campaigns that I ran, there is a uh, Baron von Evensong. There's a book called the Book of Crypts. It is a 4-page adventure, and it's the most deadly 4-page adventure I've ever seen because the players are invited to this house. Baron von Evensong has invited a group of wanderers to come in, have dinner with him, and he sits down and he plays them a harpsichord, and all of a sudden, everything outside of the room completely disappears for 99 years. And if the players didn't eat a full meal, then they're probably going to die within 2 or 3 weeks. If they ate a full meal, they may live out the rest of their lifespan unless they figure out how to get out of the room. So it's just this nice condensed adventure. All the clues are in there, how to escape, but if not, it could be the end. It's a 4-page. Everything in Ravenloft is extremely deadly. It's not for the faint of heart. Which is why I think you either love it or you hate it because it pulls no punches. It really doesn't. Now, of course, once we could say what we want about fifth edition, they sort of put some of the gloves on a little bit in fifth edition, where they have taken some of the teeth out, but that's okay. It's Everybody has their own idea of what a fun game is, and to be honest, having something that deadly from the jump isn't everybody's cup of tea. So I understand why it is the way it is now, but yeah, it's you could be stumbling in the woods and all of a sudden have a very different campaign, like you said. Hmm.
Yeah, and if you want to, if you're running Curse of Strahd, you're running 5e, and you have Van Richten's on the shelf, and you're like, I am going to do some vampire stuff now. I'm going to do some spooky stuff, and I want more stakes. Right,
Hmm.
the Death House isn't definitely enough for you. Like there is, it's just what decades and decades of material to draw upon that are good. There are, it's not even diamonds in the rough. Like a lot of that stuff is very well made.
and it
Yeah.
and the thing that I do anything can be deadly if you ramp up the hit points and you
Hmm.
throw more characters at it. But what I love is that sense of dread and the sense of like sort of just like crippling fear. Like this, it is a it is there's something to the atmosphere. It's not just because it's deadly. It's just that the atmosphere in the game is a lot different than typical knight in shining armor or horses roaming the countryside, or it's just the whole atmosphere around the whole thing is what really makes me love the setting. So anything can be deadly if you try hard enough. But yeah, the atmosphere around the setting is, I don't know if you can tell by all the red. It's what I love the most about it.
And I
So,
think that's its strength. I mean, one, it does
hmm.
that atmosphere very well, but two, it's laser focused,
Hmm.
right? Opposed to a kitchen sink setting
Hmm.
like Forgotten Realms, or you're like, classic fantasy, Tolkien facsimile. Like it knows what it is, and
Hmm.
that gets player buy-in, or
Hmm.
not even buy-in. I mean buy-in. If you want to play a horror game, you know what you're signing up for and you can lean into it. But it gets everybody leaning the same way. It gets everybody
Right.
on the same page. It's not like I'm trying to play Monty Python, you're trying to play Game of Thrones. It's like, no, we know what we're doing here. Everybody's moving the same direction. And as on the Dungeon Master side of the screen, you have every scary movie you've ever seen. You might have to
Hmm.
like reskin something here or there, but like you have a box of just like tropes, not even cliches, but like archetypal things you can go reaching for that are just like the language, the vernacular, like the grammar of a story like this.
And that's
Yeah.
one thing I will say the fifth edition did real well is there was that sort of kitchen sink gothic horror mentality towards the old stuff, but even with what they did with fifth edition was where they chunked everything up into a different style of horror, like cosmic
Mm,
horror.
mm,
In a way, instead of just having the setting uh, focus, each domain is focused on a particular type of horror that it kind of helps the DM out in that way. Like, well, my players are into cosmic horror, so they can go here. My players are into body horror, we can send them here. So while they did change some things around from the older editions, I think some of the changes actually benefited newer DMs uh, who haven't spent as much time in the realm of horror, and it's helped them sort of uh, not codify, help them sort of put things in certain boxes that can help the players out, determining what type of horror game they want to run. So it's not just
mhm,
here's a world of horror. So fifth edition definitely did change some things, but not all of it was for the worse, as some people like to say. I'm not a type of person who's throws fifth edition Ravenloft out. I enjoy it. I like some of the stuff that they did. Some of the stuff I don't, but I think uh, I think it was. I understand why they did it. Let's put it that way.
mhm,
Um, and you were talking about mechanics and setting that cross point. That was one of the things that I liked with Ravenloft. Is I think for a setting to be uh, really robust. I think each setting has to have its own mechanics that are unique to the setting, and that's one thing Ravenloft did with fear and horror checks and powers checks, where if you as a player started doing too many evil things or started just wiling out, murder hobos, that sort of thing, the land would recognize that and start sort of like spoon feeding you little things to make you a little bit more powerful, and then little by little the land would start giving you bonuses and benefits, and the next thing you know you're in your own shoebox domain. And so the murder hobo or the people who struck first and did evil deeds, they weren't it was not good for them in Ravenloft. It was, but some of those setting specific mechanics are really really stand out in Ravenloft. And and I'm sure there are setting specific mechanics in other settings. I just don't know them off the top of my head. And
mhm.
if anybody out there is any fans of any of the other settings and you know of a setting specific mechanic, mention it down in the comments. I hope you don't mind me saying that, Ryan. This is your show. I can't tell people what to comment on, but
No, no, no.
sorry.
I share. The and my favorite kind of rules are consequential
Mhm.
and kind of add this, and it's resource management optimization through some lenses, but like you're trying to like navigate that knife's edge of like, okay, being evil good to a point
Mhm.
and then being evil real bad and I've lost my character. So like how much can I dial that in?
Mhm.
And that is uh a mechanical way to get the player to be experiencing a version of what the character is experiencing by this like force of whatever enticing
Mhm.
evilness trying to lure you down the wrong path. That's beautiful as opposed to just like, well, this makes numbers bigger. It's like,
Right.
no, this is a decision point that like I have to think about very carefully, or you know gloriously cascade into my doom with a
Yeah.
smile on my face because I get to make a new character after that.
Yeah, that's I've seen that happen, and I've seen people go gung ho and like, oh, I've got glowing red eyes, and all of a sudden I have dark vision. That's a good thing, right? And I'm like, well, okay, sure. Now it's a good thing. And the next thing you know, before they know it, they've lost complete control of their character, and like, what happened? I'm like, well, it's a slippery slope. I don't I don't know what to tell you. You made these decisions, but yeah, it's fun to watch those sort of things as a DM.
Hmm.
And I never relish in players making bad decisions for themselves, but it sure is fun to watch. You know,
Oh God, yes. And even when it's, yeah, I mean, there's, I'm sure there is some like uh evil version of the DM puppet master enjoying running something like this too much. But when it is, the players can decide to fail or lead into failure or lean
Mhm,
into choice points. There's no winning and losing per se. There's just telling an interesting story.
mhm. Yeah.
And easy mode and OP power mode is one story, but it's
Mhm.
maybe not the most interesting story.
Yeah, as there is, and as much as love Ravenloft, I have to admit, and over the years, it has been very hard to get a consistent group of players together to play that sort of game, where the stakes are always high,
Mhm.
where the winning in a game is like barely making it out alive, or maybe it's very taxing, and unless you have like a specific group of players who relish that sort of thing. Um, it's maybe sometimes easier to spend a weekend in Ravenloft than come back to your normal campaign than it is to play an extended campaign in something as grimdark as Ravenloft, at least older Ravenloft. You know, but
Mhm.
uh, but it's it's always been it's always been my favorite to read and to imagine and to prepare for and to spend time in. And I have a few friends who are always up for it, but a lot of people they come in and like, okay, that was interesting, but can we go back to where I'm a superhero, please? I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. We'll run something else. It's fine. That's I feel like Ravenloft is a DM's playground, um,
Mm.
more so than any of the other settings. But it is fun even just to read and imagine and just to look through in the art. It just I know I'm sorry. I know this isn't necessarily a gushing time about Ravenloft, but it is by far my favorite D&D setting.
Yeah, I wouldn't have invited you if I didn't want you to talk about
Hmm,
Ravenloft. So we're cool, man.
that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, okay. As let me grab some books then, Ryan. We're gonna
uh,
we're gonna
well,
start at page one.
let's roll some dice because
Let's roll some dice.
I think we'll probably get into it
Hmm.
organically anyway.
Sure.
Let's get some dice on the screen. Where's my dice? Here's my dice. There we go. All right, so roll a
Alrighty.
D20 for me,
Which one's that?
and we're
Nah,
gonna.
I'm just kidding. Um, alrighty. I just clicked a button that says roll here, right? All right.
Yeah, it's like slightly less intuitive than it
Mhm.
should be, but
No,
once
no,
if
it's
you
all
figure it
good.
out once, then you're good.
Oh, I got it. Yeah, we're good.
14.
All right.
All right. Actually, this is gonna be an interesting one in the context of Ravenloft or otherwise.
Hmm.
What is your take on the sandbox versus railroad? The spectrum, the debate. Where do you fall on
Oh,
that?
I mean, I really don't even think it's a debate. Sandbox all the way.
Mm,
I, are are we, are you being read to, or are we creating a world together? I got in trouble in my younger days sandboxing or railroading
mm,
players, and I didn't get in trouble where people got mad at me. It was just there was a lot of player drop off. When I'm like, no, no, that's you have to go over here, you have to do this, and I'm like, keep in mind I was like 10 or 11, um, so it was. I felt like everything was like, this is the story that I wrote. This is where you have to go. This is what you have to do. This is where all the monsters are. Um, and I realized quickly, like that's not. I mean, that may be fine in short spurts, but really, sandbox. The way I create my worlds is I literally create a couple plot points, and then I populate it with people who have their own motivations, and the world goes on whether the players interact with it or not. So my prep in that way has actually become a lot easier because I don't have to plan things out to the nth degree. And there have been complete plot points and parts of games that players have completely abandoned and not interacted with. But because I know I have these other set of characters over here in the world and I kind of have a rough idea of what they've been doing, as soon as the players pivot, I'm able to pivot. And it makes the players end up creating a lot of the game world for themselves without even knowing it.
mm.
So sandbox is the real, for me, that's where the juice is, because you know you let the players have much more of a sense of creating the world rather than me like pushing them towards a story. And besides, it's really easy if I have a situation that I want the players to engage with, and the players are over here, I'll just all of a sudden quantum DMing that situation is now moved over to here. So I just, and you know, that's not railroading. That's just sort of, you know, moving the event to another part of the world. So if I don't if I don't have that part of the world completely created yet, it's real easy to move some sort of plot point or something over to there. It's sort of like the world populates as they go along. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I can't railroad. It just never works out well.
Oh, absolutely answers the question. And I think you
Hmm.
touched on the fact that once you get good at it or start to understand it truly, like at first, railroading feels like the easier thing to do because I
Hmm.
know A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Where sandbox, it's like, oh no, I need to make, I need to make three alphabets.
Right.
I need to do three times as much work. But once you have, I think it's a matter of experience too. Once you have a sense of like how far anyone's going to go in a given session,
Hmm.
how much time you have to prep between sessions, you don't have to get too far ahead of yourself, and it
Right.
actually can prevent burnout because
Yeah.
you're not leaving much on the table at all. Your prep is more fun because it's much more imaginative,
Hmm.
and yeah, there's a lot fewer wasted pieces where like yeah, I've told this whole story, I know what's going to happen in 8 levels, and then a
Yeah.
month down the line the whole game dissolves and you're like, that's all right,
Yeah.
and then you try to start that same railroad over and over again
Yeah.
and wonder why it's not going to the end.
Yeah,
And
planning that far ahead has never worked for me, at least not in modern
no,
times.
no.
It's just it never works. And I prep. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's still prep, but the prep is
Mm,
more when you get into a flow state, you know, sort of you prep as it comes, and I have my list of names that I can pull up at any
mm,
given moment, and just the prep is more having things ready so I can create something on the fly than it is having something set in stone that I can bring to the table. But like you said, there's a certain level of trust that you have to develop with your players and with yourself as a DM to do that, where you're like,
mm,
I don't have everything written out in front of me, but everybody's still gonna have a good time. We're gonna figure something out. And if I get stuck, you know, and be like, okay, guys, so I have before I've been like, okay, you guys are way too out of pocket here. I don't mind that, but we're just gonna have to stop the session now because you guys are way out of hand. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. There's
yeah.
nothing wrong with saying, okay, just pause it here for the session because I'm really not prepared for any of this. But those are few and far between. Um, but that I think it's a lot it's a lot more beneficial to you as a DM to not have to get everything written down because those days of I would create when I was younger, I would create an entire module's worth of information for upcoming sessions and I would use 4% of it. And I was just like, why am I writing out all these conversations? Why am I writing out all the descriptions of these rooms and all these descriptions for these towns? And they decided not to go there. So
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
that's great if you want to be a writer. Um, and I consider myself that, but it's not really helpful in the moment at the table.
Yeah, to the point where it can be counterproductive even
Hmm.
because it can kind of engender this frustration within you of like, oh, just do my cool thing.
Yeah, yeah.
um
Just do this. I've written all this stuff for you guys. I was
you're
like, well, no,
supposed
we
to
want
be
to go
here.
play with this mouse over here. We
Right, right.
we think this mouse is a wizard. I'm like, well, he wasn't, but he is now. So congratulations, you guys are smart. And they're like, yay! And meanwhile, it was never that. And you're the greatest DM ever. I'm like, how did you come up with that? I'm like, I don't. It's amazing, right? It's amazing.
And now you're playing the game because
Hmm.
writing, as someone who also fancies himself as a writer, like writing is work.
Yeah.
You opening yourself up to like having your prep be play is
Hmm.
so much nicer. It's
Hmm.
just, and then you get to discover, oh, the world starts doing stuff. You get to discover things about this world that you are the god of, but like
Yeah.
it starts to organically make decisions for you. Like, oh shit, that
Yeah.
makes sense that he would do that, and she would go over there because this happened because they did that. Like, yeah.
And it's things that you may not have even thought of at the time when you were doing prep, but
Hmm.
so somebody will just offhandedly throw a comment at the table. And if you don't have all that stuff already written, then that's a great idea. that's exactly what it is now. Of course, you don't tell them that. You don't tell the players that, but
Yes.
you just scribble down your note, and I'm like, this guy is now the main bad guy. And you have to be willing as a DM to abandon anything, any concept that you've come up with, and go with what is happening at the table at any given moment. You have to let go of your ego. It's everybody's game.
Right.
It's not just yours. So.
Right. Right. And you're outnumbered.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, yes, but I I could still drop down to Rask if I want to.
Oh no, you have ultimate power. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
saying, yeah.
With great power comes something that Spider-Man talked
I'm
about. I
not
don't
saying
quite
it,
remember what it was.
yeah. I'm not saying it's balanced, but
No.
there's more of them than there are of you. You can still take them though, don't worry.
Mm. Oh, we can get into balance. I do not balance my games. I
Oh
don't.
no,
I don't.
balance is an illusion that I've
Hmm.
done away with a long time ago.
Yep.
And I mean that's on one of these cards. Give me another
Okay.
D20. Let's get into it.
Alrighty.
Let's see what else we got.
All right. Let's see. Yeah, I'm rolling.
Rolling hot.
Oh, 14 again.
Whoa, lightning round right out of the gate.
Oh,
Woo. So in theory, these don't have to be yes or no questions. Again, I
okay.
told you before we started, the form is arbitrary. I'm gonna go big screen again,
All right.
so we can see us smiling faces and Lady Liberty here.
Mhm.
Do you fudge the hard hitting questions right out of the gate?
Mm. Do I fudge? Wow, that's.
Are you
uh,
willing to
Am I
admit
willing
in
to admit
public?
that?
Next question.
So it depends on what the situation is, where we're at, and if I fudge, it's in benefit of the players
Mhm,
and benefit of the story. I don't roll out in the open. I roll behind a screen. I don't because I've seen players be wiped out in the middle of a good story because of
mhm,
like really bad rolls, and I've
mhm,
felt guilty. So
mhm,
I don't. Hmm, so yes and no. If it's if it's depends on how things are breaking. I don't fudge so I can get an upper hand. I fudge so that players can have a chance in
mhm,
situations. And I fudge if everything's breaking against them and they haven't let's say they were looking for a clue in a library and I'm having them roll perception checks and they're just bombing them. I'll fake rolls. I'll pretend to roll behind the screen, not pay attention to the die, and then give them the pertinent information if I feel like they should be discovering something and they're not. Um, I will roll for no good reason behind a screen just to keep people guessing why I'm rolling.
mhm.
So if that counts as fudging, yes. Um, but I will not. I don't pull punches in combat per se on like a round to round basis, but I will adjust hit points up and
Oh,
down
sure.
depending on how the battle's going. Um, so yeah, yeah, I know that's like taboo where people are like it's a game and the dice are what they are. I'm like, yeah, but that's like saying this is my script. Kind of like you have to be able to feel how things are going, um, because you
Yeah.
don't want. I mean, it's one thing to have players die. It's another for everybody to walk away from a table going like that was absolutely horrible session. I am despair. Like I don't know if I want to keep playing this.
Mhm.
So but it's few and far between. But I won't sit there and roll dice and pretend to hit if I haven't hit. I won't I won't shade things in my favor. When I do adjust things, it's usually uh because things are just not going right for players and I just want to sort of like you know, give a little bit of a nudge or that sort of thing. So I know it's a third rail topic. I'm sweating here. I'm sweating right out the gate. Thanks.
Hard hitting questions.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I mean, I have, and I will
Mhm.
again, until very recently, because I'm doing a much more like table generative thing. So
Mhm.
there's a lot more dice going on lately. But for the last 3 years, almost before that, I've rolled in the open, definitely smoked some people because of it.
Mhm.
So I've seen both sides of it. I think the most like vitriol on the fudging is cheating side of things. There's people who've never actually run the game
Yeah.
because no one's like, man, I haven't hit all night. I'm gonna crit the next roll. I'm just gonna say it's a 20 because I'm bored of missing. Like that's I mean, I'm sure someone out there is doing that, but
Mm.
like there's the majority of dungeon masters are using that tool, because it is a tool,
Mhm,
to advance the story. And that is half of the reason why there is a screen in front of the dungeon
mhm.
master, is that so they can do that. Playing without a net is fun sometimes. I'm a big advocate of at least trying it because I really love it. But like, I'm not gonna hate on you for fudging. And I haven't really seen, because a lot of people answered that question already. I haven't seen a lot of hate for it. People who are like it's cheating haven't run many games.
So that's why, like, if you look at a system, um, you take a look at some of the other systems, like GM intrusion from
Mm,
uh, the Cipher system.
hmm.
So that, in a way, is tantamount to fudging.
Right.
You know, so it's just there isn't a fudge mechanic in D&D where I can say, okay, I'm going to do this without impunity. So that's sort of, I look at it like that. It's basically like somewhat of a GM intrusion, when
Yes.
I'm like, okay, I'm going to ignore that roll, or I'm going to say that this was this number. I'm not even gonna, or I'm going to roll and it really isn't going to matter. So it's almost, there's some other systems that have that built in, that sort of DM fiat,
Yeah.
you know.
DM Dungeon Master like moves, Game
Mhm.
Master moves. And I
Speaking of
think,
which, I see the copy of Old Gods of Appalachia back
oh
there.
yes, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, 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 yeah. So
that's
it's
good.
interesting. So I'm in love with this setting. I'm in love with this podcast. Actually, that's why I bought the book. It's one
Hmm.
of my favorite. Just if you're going on a road trip, download that. It starts really strong and has gotten better and better over the years, just like production value and quality. But like, oof, they can tell the story. And I mean,
Hmm.
you want good horror. I mean, it's hard. Maybe it's cosmic horror. It's its own kind of
Yeah,
genre of horror.
it's
But I've never run it. I've taken some ideas from it, but I've never run Cipher, the system, which that's built on.
yeah.
But as we were saying before, you can take inspiration and much more than chunks out of a system and a setting and apply them to other things.
Actually, I have it back here along with some other books from the Cipher system, and I like the Cipher system. And at first, when I was looking at it, I was like, it seems a little light, but then reading through it, I think it would be perfectly fine for running a great game. And I haven't run it. I haven't ran it either, to be
Mm.
honest. But I've looked through it plenty, and I've watched people, and I've listened to Old Gods of Appalachia, and obviously Monty Cook. You know, I trust that man implicitly.
He knows what
He
he's doing.
he
He
does
knows
know
what
what
he's
he's
doing.
doing. Yeah.
He's got a proven track record. Let's put it
Mm.
that way.
Yep.
I mean, speaking of I think going back to fudging for a second, I
Mhm.
think again, a lot of it's people who haven't experienced running fifth edition for a very long time
Mhm.
because it is not a perfectly it on its surface it's a calibrated, balanced system, but once you start like driving it around for a while, you're like, oh, this thing is janky.
Mhm.
The CR is broken and
Yeah.
counterbalance is busted. All of these things that I was relying on aren't there. And sometimes you don't realize that they're totally out of whack until you're in the middle of a combat or something.
Oh, I
Or you're playing an adventure and they've exactly that. They put the to advance the story, the players have to roll high enough and there's no alternatives. And what the hell is why do we gatekeep the story here, guys? And you have
right.
to shove it over with a fence or something.
And if you talk about fifth edition and the jankiness, I blew an entire campaign the first time I tried to play fifth edition when I went from 3.5 to fifth edition, and I was like, I've DM before, whatever. And then like I kind of breezed through the book. I was like, this will be fine. And
Hmm.
I didn't realize how the power creep levels of the players once, just and I gave magic items early on,
Hmm. Hmm.
way too early, and I didn't realize that people were gaming the system nowadays. So I used to, in order to get around and come, and it's not a bad thing. Anybody who does that out there, I'm not attacking you. Um, I used to give out bags of holding, like
Hmm.
as almost like a starter magic item, because like we're not gonna worry about encumbrance.
Right.
Here's your bag of holding. Thank you, you're welcome. I didn't realize somebody was going to cast fly on themselves, fill a bag of holding with 500 1-pound stones, fly 100 feet in the air, and I had to calculate carpet bombing damage from a bag of holding with stones. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, hold on. He's like, well, I can do that. I'm like, you can. Hold on. Wait a minute. What? Like, so at the I was I will never hand out magic items that soon in game again. And that was, and maybe not fifth edition's fault, but I was used to people sort of not figuring out every little uh you know nuance to magic items and how to use them in game for purposes not intended. And it was a little bit of a system shock at first when I
Hmm.
first moved to fifth edition. But yeah, fifth edition has some janky parts to it. But it's fine though. I mean, I'm not out here attacking fifth edition. It's great. It's a great game. It's got a lot of people who never played before playing, and
I have
my
a ton
my
of fun with
kids
it.
love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna run it tomorrow. Like I
Hmm.
ain't, I'm not hating,
No, I'm not hating.
but
Just
I'm running something else tonight.
mhm.
So,
I may some things. I may say some things about it, but I don't hate it at all. I
no,
still have all my
and
books.
I
Yeah.
mean a lot of Vertigo Table has been until recently like introduction to dungeon mastering, and I think it's a
Hmm.
very important lesson to get in front of people right away. The CR system is bunk, and
Hmm.
you should know that. And player creep is real, and eventually you're gonna have to start upping your side of the equation, or the game is entirely too easy and boring.
Hmm.
And it's a very fine line from boring to, oh, I just killed everybody by accident. So there's tools at your disposal to deal with those situations when they're happening, and fudging is one of them.
One of them. Hmm.
Long lightning round. Let's go.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
What is no, it's not your fault. What is
Should
your
I roll another D20, or are we still in lightning
no,
round?
we're I got a whole list of questions for you.
Okay,
Favorite
great.
dice size. So
Favorite
not
dice size?
yeah, so like
Standard?
increments, like not so like D20, D4, 6, 8, 10, like which
Oh,
one of the polyhedrals is your favorite?
D12
Mm,
because it's so underused.
yeah, that's the right
And
answer.
yeah, thank you. D20's fine. They're everywhere, but this is yeah, it's I like the 12. And I'm a big fan of bringing back multiple uses for multiple die
Mm.
instead of just damage type. Like, bring back some mechanics that are die specific, you know?
Whenever I'm like making a ruling for like something random, like I'm like, all right, what haven't we touched in a while? It's like, roll a D12, what you get,
Yeah.
and that's going to
Yep.
determine what happens next.
That,
All
and I
my
also
encountering
think
tables are trying
percentile
to use
die
it.
are a little underused too.
Yeah, a buddy at my a player at my table's got a D30 recently, so like I'm constantly looking for reasons to like, all right, what's a 30% chance? Yeah,
You know?
there's one somewhere on that shelf, but like it's packed away. Never, it's not in the kit. I'll tell you that
And
much.
this one too, I don't know if you've seen this, the D100.
Is that the 100? They roll
It's the 100 with they
forever.
do.
It's a
They
ball.
do.
You got to have a
It's
big
just a ball.
table.
It's just a golf ball without
Mhm.
the sides with numbers on it. But yeah,
Yeah,
they do roll forever. Um, and people are like, just use two D10s. I'm like, it's not the same.
it's not the same.
It's not the same.
It's
Just
not the
let that
same.
puppy roll. We'll
It builds
find out what it is
tension.
in another 15 minutes.
It
Yeah.
builds tension. Published or homebrew? I think I know Ravenloft's answer here,
Mm.
but Ravenlore's
Um.
answer.
Mm, wow. Which one do I like better?
Hmm.
Or okay. Oof. I mean, I published as far as Ravenloft goes. I think the stuff that they put out and the writers that they've had at their disposal and the material that they put out, I absolutely adore it. And nothing I've ever come up with in Ravenloft has even matched the stuff that Bruce Nesmith and Andrea Hayday and I could name a bunch of other people. So as far as Ravenloft goes, I have to go with published. But as far as everything else goes, it's been all homebrew.
Hmm.
After I've gotten out of Mastara, everything's been homebrew.
And that was like
80.
contemporary times. Well, I'm saying, yeah, that's when like Mastara was the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is when you were in
Yeah,
Mastara. Okay, yeah,
that's
fair.
when I cut my teeth on the red box set, way back in the day. 83 is when I started playing, and
Hmm.
and then I got into the Gazetteers, and that was before Ravenloft came out. And actually, when the first I6 came out, I plunked it down in Galantry, well, my friend David plunked it down in Galantry, and that was in our Mystara setting. And then then he got into the Forgotten Realms, and I was like, get that gray box nonsense out of here. And yeah, it was a big division at the table, and and but then after I got into Ravenloft, all the other stuff I did was most cherry picking stuff from different settings and putting it in my own homebrew,
I do think
except
it is
except for
a
Ravenloft.
it's a trick question, I think, because the
Hmm.
answer's both
Yeah, yeah.
for most folks out there. Yeah.
I was trying to walk that line while just not saying I don't understand the question. Does not.
You can call bullshit on any of these questions. They're on an index card. They're not.
I wouldn't dare do that to you, Ryan. Not on your show. No,
Okay,
no.
well, yeah, I'll come on your show and you can call
That's
bullshit.
fine. You could do that.
What is your favorite class?
Mm, mm. Thief. And
Good answer. That shows
that's
your that shows the roots too.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I remember. I was a halfling thief named Wilson Tremblefoot. That was
Mm,
one of my first characters. Modern days though, I'm a fan of oh goodness gracious. I had a Asimar Paladin.
mm,
Um trying to remember. But I do like paladins. Uh, but I don't like paladin. I prefer my paladins lawful good, if I may say so. I'm not a big fan of the evil paladins. I get
hmm
why they're doing it. I understand. It's paladin just has a severe zealot commitment to something, whether that's good or bad. I understand, but I still prefer my paladins righteous, my self-righteous indignation
Yeah, you play
paladins.
it. I mean, I think some people are out there playing it for the smite, but like you
Mm-hmm.
play it for the flavor. You play it because it's like a very, again, that focus of like
Mm-hmm.
this guy knows what he's doing, what he wants, what he, character's got to have a code, and
Yeah.
a paladin has a code built in. So the
Mm-hmm.
decision making is always like there for you, even if it goes against what the player would do, which
Mm-hmm.
is the interesting parts.
Yeah, and then there is that balance when running a paladin, especially like a lawful stupid paladin. Like you can play them correctly, and
Mm,
you can play them like playing a Kender. Like you can play them functionally and correctly, and still get the flavor of the paladin. And then there's ways you can play him, and he's just an asshole. Because yeah, there's a fine line, but good role players can walk that line and find that balance where they bring out the best in the class instead of being the reason everybody hates to see them at the table.
right, right. You're playing a character that is in this group that is potentially eventually like their found family,
Hmm.
and you're working together towards a common goal. And I mean, in theory, you're a paladin. You have a crazy high charisma, so you have a pretty decent EQ. You know how
Hmm.
to talk to people and how to work together with people. So even if you don't agree with the person next to you, like they don't have to follow your code.
Right.
You're following your code, and that's the
And
beginning
that's
and the
what
end of a lot of those problems. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what's important. It's when they start crossing that line and forcing their morality on every single other player at the table and, making
Right.
decisions for the group that really only they should be forced to have to make. There's a nuance to playing this, which is
Mm-hmm.
why I like playing paladins.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't I could count on my hand maybe how many times I've actually played in the past couple decades as opposed to DMing because I have been a
Oh,
forever DM, so it's for the for the most part since the late 80s I've been a DM. I mean, and to be honest, and I don't know if anybody out there's got any games going on. Um I actually these days with everything going on with the channel and a whole bunch of other life, I don't have the time to really plan out a campaign. So I'm been itching lately. I'm like, well, I still want to play. Like maybe I should drop back to being a player for a little while and just show up with my character one day a week and then not have to worry about anything else and then I can still play. So I'm thinking about that's making that a goal this year is to play more just on the opposite side of the table.
it makes you a better DM. Being a player makes you a better DM. Being a DM makes you an infinitely better player. I think the return on investment is even just running a one shot makes
Mhm.
you see you get the
Oh, sure.
bird's eye view of the whole game. You become a much better player.
Become a
But
much more agreeable player. I can tell you that. Like
I was
what
just
I mean by that is like you don't push back against the DM as much after you've been on that side of the table and you understand how much they're having to juggle. Like you don't if the DM sort of trying to nudge you in a certain direction, you're more willing to not say, "No, I'm going to go play with the mouse over here. He looks interesting." You tend to follow the plot a little bit more after
yeah.
you've been a DM.
I think a lot. I don't know if it's generational trauma from the old days when everyone was 10 years old running the game, or like what. But the idea of like this like antagonistic
Mm,
dungeon man. I mean, again, they're out there, but it's
yeah.
the exception, not the rule. This idea of like I'm going to enjoy breaking this game. Like when
Yeah.
I get to be a player, I'm like what kind of character do you want me to make? Like what
Hmm.
can I'll be halfway to an NPC, man. Like what how do I make this story better? What can I do to like
Help.
collectively collaborate and drive this cool,
Hmm.
crazy bust that we're going to do that's going off a cliff no matter what we do. So we might as well all push in the same direction to start. Uh,
Yeah, and that
yeah.
was one of the last times I was a player. Maybe it was during COVID. And I even went to the DM. I was like, "You need to pass me some notes under the table to help keep some people on track.
Mm.
I got you. I can help. Whatever you need me to do." And he came up with this idea. He was like, "Oh, how about we make you a secret villain?" And at the end of the thing, you reveal yourself. You got to turn around and fight all the PCs. I'm like, I'm in. What do you want?
It's,
Yeah, just I'm in. Let me know what you want me to do. And that was fun. That was really fun. I played Rene Laud. He was a charlatan. I'm trying to remember what he was now. Uh, a duelist or rapier. Oh,
mhm.
I'm sorry. Yeah, but it was a while ago during COVID. I may have had a lot of drinks that evening. I can't quite remember. But yeah, no, that was a fun experience. So like help working with the DM is when you're a DM too is it's kind of a prerequisite.
Guest stars are my I had yeah, I've been one. I've had a few. Like you got that friend who is interested in D&D, doesn't know if, like they're thinking about dipping their toe in the water, or who's like deep into D&D but just
Mm,
like work or kids or whatever, they can't commit to the weekly game or the monthly game. If you can figure out a way to fold them in
mm-hmm.
organically once in a while and they show up and just are a co-collaborator, then
And they're godsend. You
you
can
could
do
do
so
some
much.
real, oh god, well yeah, one is liberating. Two,
Hmm.
yeah, it's great to be like you do. It's like having a familiar. It's just
Yeah,
like, hey, send them on this quest for me, please, because they're not listening.
yeah.
Or it's just, yeah, it's just fun. It's just
Hmm.
good. Favorite lineage or ancestry or species or
Mm,
race, whatever we're gonna end up calling that at the end of the day.
mm. Um, Human,
Hmm.
or halfling,
Okay.
uh, or dwarf. I tend to like to get my flavor in characters from classes,
Hmm.
more so than like racial benefits. I'm not a big like a lot of people are like the wilder the better. So now a lot of people want to play drow or tieflings and or dragonborn. And that's fine, but I'm not a big fan of playing a lot of I like the old school view of sort of self-insert while playing the game.
Hmm.
So I tend to prefer for myself more uh the classic the classic player characters. Although I did make a dork one time. Was a half dork, half I mean, I'm sorry, half orc, half dwarf.
That's what I
I,
thought we were going. Okay.
yeah, then I called him a dork, and that was pretty fun. But that was the wildest I got. I'm very vanilla, so when it comes to my player characters.
Limits to creativity are important. I think now, like, I mean, with the end of an edition, and maybe we're hitting the reset button, kind of,
Mhm.
but when there's 80 options, they all kind of become the same. It gets
Yeah.
washed out a little bit. I've really struggled in those cases where I have a party of five crazy things.
Hmm.
Like the first couple sessions, I'm trying really hard to like differentiate and lore build around them, and then it's
Hmm.
like, well, I'm treating you all like humans at the end.
Yeah.
Like
Uh,
it stops mattering when it's
right. When it
overwrought.
gets that wild, it's the racial benefits are numbers on a page at that point. They're not really flavor anymore, and especially since 90% of people have dark vision now. So
Mhm.
it's just the gestalt settings are fine, but it does start to all blend.
Right.
Like, there isn't, and they've taken. I don't know. Is it getting into this?
Oh.
I like personally negatives to come along with character creation.
Oh.
So,
Hmm.
if it used to be when if you were playing a dwarf, your base speed was 10 lower than somebody else. You couldn't cast magic, at least in Beckme. As a dwarf, you had magic resistance, but that also means that you couldn't cast magic. So there was restrictions on classes. Um, so once they opened all that up and there's no more restrictions, if you're playing as a drow, like I think they've even lessened the rules for sensitivity to light,
Mm-hmm.
for the drow. I think I don't think it's hardcore where you get the negatives to vision and stuff if you're out in sunlight where you used to. Um, if you start stripping off the negatives, and it's really just window dressing. You
Right.
know, it's so I'm I I'm not against playing as I think it should be special. You know, I think if you're gonna have a party and then you have a dragonborn in the party, like that dragonborn should stand out.
Mm,
There should be areas that you go into where they're maybe not used to seeing dragonborn, and like, hold on, yeah, it's there should be more than just window dressing if you're gonna play as an out there character, like tieflings. Like when I got back into playing fifth edition, one of the friends wanted to play a tiefling, and he was on it. He wanted to play a tiefling pirate that scared the heck out of commoners when he walked through town. And I thought that was great. And I
mm-hmm,
played it like that. And he
mm-hmm,
thought it was great. But then everybody else wanted to be tieflings. And then
mm-hmm,
some other people who were playing tieflings were like, well, why am I getting looked at funny? I was like, well, you're with devil spawn, you know, kind of walking through a backwater town and you're devil spawn.
mm-hmm,
Like people are gonna
mm-hmm.
look at you weird. And
Yeah.
then I got called racist. And I was like, that's not that's not what that is. So
Yeah.
yeah, I I I don't know. I like playing as close to the core four, like dwarf, elf,
Mm-hmm.
human, halfling, somewhere in that. I'm not a huge fan of playing as a lot of the other wilder stuff, and no flying characters. I
Oh,
can't.
Mr. Asimar, Paladin, no flying characters, huh?
Okay, that was short. That's a short burst. They can
Just
only
one
fly
shot.
for a minute, you know.
Okay.
But no. I mean like the Aarakocra, I can't.
Mm,
I have a hard time planning out uh planning out campaigns when two or more people in the group just have the ability to fly. I'm like, well, that takes a lot of,
yes.
you know, that's a big buy-in. So like, well, I'm just gonna be able to fly everywhere. I'm like, well,
Mm,
that kind of
I
sucks.
guess everything's going on in a dungeon with 8-foot ceilings. There, I
Mm-hmm.
don't,
Yeah.
boring.
uh yeah, so then that's my short long answer.
Yeah. So for those who are just steeped in the ways of fifth edition, back in the day, not that I'm speaking from research, not experience. So I'm a baby. I've only been playing for 10 years, which is nothing in these
Oh,
in these waters. But yeah, sorry, I wasn't playing in the 80s. Blame my folks or something.
You don't have to apologize.
No, no, no.
It's, you
That's not.
know.
That wasn't to you. That was to
Oh, okay.
whoever. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we're cool.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you.
This eventually this will
Tr
be on the internet and people will.
Trust me, I got in trouble for playing in the 80s. I got expelled for having the blue box in lunch.
Oh God,
I got yanked
yeah.
into the principal's office, and it was a whole big thing about the
The,
satanic panic and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
It wasn't all sunshine and roses. Trust me.
No, no, no. I'm slightly younger than you, so I missed the like I saw the wave, but I like missed the wave, and I just happened to not like there wasn't that like I didn't have the older brother or like the cool cousin to like pull me into the D&D group. There wasn't.
Hmm.
I was the nerdiest person I knew. What was I gonna do?
Right.
No one taught me the ways. Um, what was I saying? Oh, but anyway, in the old days, in the older editions, and sometimes still now in OSR, Old School Essentials has a option for it. Elf was your class. Dwarf was your class. Like this is what you. This is it. You're a fighter, man, right, or whatever. Like right, you're a human fighter or a human magic caster, magic user, or you're a thief
Hmm.
or you were a
Or
dwarf
an elf. Yep.
or an elf if your stats could carry it.
Hmm.
And there, yeah, and I do think I like the idea that they like came out and said, okay, not all drow are evil,
Hmm.
right? Not you can make a goblin that isn't evil. I don't know if they actually had to say that, but they have to say everything because it's whatever we live in the future now and everyone's on the warpath for everything. I that was obviously always the case, but they
Hmm.
officially endorsed the fact that like, yeah, so some goblins are evil and some are not, and it's because reasons, whatever. But the idea that like there shouldn't be a speed penalty because of like physiological differences between species or what there shouldn't be some sort of if not I don't know,
Well,
orcs are strong but don't have a high intelligence, right?
well,
And
I think the one that makes the most sense was orcs were strong, but their charisma was way low
right, okay.
because you know they because if they're in a normal conversation, you're playing as an orc and you're surrounded by humans. Of course, your charisma is not going to be where a normal, good-looking human
r-
would be. And the
right.
same thing with like a dwarf, like they got these little legs, so their speed was much slower. You know, it was much slower. You had to deal with some limitations.
Mhm.
You know.
So I think as long as we do a good job stripping away any sort of like real world racial
Yeah.
touchstones which
I
were there
yeah, they were. Yeah.
like and were there 18 months ago. Apparently,
Sure.
we're still learning those lessons and dealing with that shit. But like, as long as we separate those, which I think is important,
Hmm. I think the
and
intelligence one is a tough nut to crack, where you had intelligence numbers that were lowered because of races and stuff. I think that one is a bridge too far. I could see physical limitations due to size and stuff like that, but once you start throwing in intelligence, like I think that was the one that stuck out to me. That was a little weird. Like there was a setting in Mastara, which was a real world port of horse lords from the Khanate Empire, and they had limitations. Oh no, that was American Indians. I'm sorry, it was
mm,
the setting that was basically American Indians, but in D&D, and they had minus penalties to intelligence, and it was because they were considered savages. I'm like, yeah, that can come out. Like
yeah,
that
yeah,
that doesn't
yeah.
have to be there. So,
It's it.
but they are few and far between. They weren't really as prevalent as a lot of people think they are. They were there, but I think they were pulled out over time, as well they should have been. But and when you really start looking into the Drow, um, actually in the book they state that there were plenty of Drow that were not evil, and they had migrated out into the mountains, and so there was.
I would say the most famous, well, maybe Vecna now these days, but like forever, Drist was the guy,
Mhm,
was
sure,
the like the most famous D&D
sure,
character, I would say.
yeah,
That might
and
be
but
my own
that's
bias,
what
but
made Drizzt so so popular, was that
right,
it was the
right.
exception, not the rule. Um, and there's a real interesting bit of drow culture that even reading it, I was like, I can't believe they put this in there. It was something that the young used to do in utero, where they would battle it out for supremacy in utero.
Hmm.
And there was a whole bunch of, I'm not going to say everything that was going on with that, because it might get you or I canceled, but if anybody's interested, go look up what happened in utero to some to drow twins. It's like
Wild, yeah, there's some wild
it's
stuff in there,
wild.
and it's always
It's
funny
wild.
to me to like look back and like, what's the most evil thing we can imagine?
Mhm.
The women are in charge, right? It's like the most evil high tech, not high tech, but like high threat race out there that's still remotely like humanoid is a matriarchy, and I
And
think the
I
only
didn't pick up
one.
on that when I was a kid. I just
No, of
thought they
course
were
you
badass.
didn't. Of
Yeah.
course you didn't. Yeah, I mean, yeah, anyone who's like, I think a lot of people have unexamined, like, if you took it on board when you were 12 years old, yeah, you should think about these things again. And that goes for everything in life, not just
Mhm.
TNT.
Right.
um, but yeah, the idea like I'm gonna make a dwarven sprinter who is innately penalized in their speed. That's interesting because of all of those things,
Mhm.
right? I'm gonna make a speedster character that's a dwarf because it's a joke and I shouldn't have to give up anything. Not as interesting to me. And like
Yeah.
whatever, your table, you do your thing, but
Yeah.
it is the limitations and the hurdles that make it an interesting story.
Sure. I
The
agree.
one, and it's fun to circle back to the intellect thing for a second. It's education in my brain in D&D, right? Because like you have this like intelligence wisdom
Mhm.
divide, but like 100, if I look up the definition of intelligence, it is deeply weird.
Yeah.
That's some people are going to have less than others if we're all going to be a stand-in for people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
That was the intelligence wisdom thing was explained to me as intelligence is knowing how to do the thing, and wisdom is knowing whether you should do the thing.
ooh,
You
interesting.
know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's how it was explained to me as far as
Yeah, it's
looking at the character sheet.
like
But
situational awareness is how I
hmm
always like streets book smart street smarts is
hmm
like
yeah.
imperfect, but I hear that a lot.
Oh, oh,
Um, all right. To go to the other side of this,
yeah.
um, stat generation. Do you roll for stats? Standard array, point buy? What's your weapon of choice there?
Depending on it depends on the table and what they want. I I for me I like rolling. Um, it's just I like rolling, getting the pool, and then assigning them where I want, depending on what type of character I'm going to create. Uh, but
Mm.
I do the 4d6, drop the lowest uh five six times, six times. No, seven times. I'm sorry, and then I drop the lowest one of those. So
Oh, okay. I
total
hear you. Yeah,
total.
yeah.
So And I made him. Again, when I blew my first 5e campaign, it had been so long since I did it. I actually had everybody roll 5d6 and drop one, and I was like, "Why does everybody have 17, 18, and 19s?" And they're like, "Well, that's what you told us to roll." I'm like, "I did." Like, I thought I knew what I was doing. That was such a humbling experience. Oh my
Oh
goodness.
God,
I
right?
mean,
Yeah.
I knew what I was doing, but I had forgotten because it had been some
Hmm.
time, and I was just going off the top of my head. But
And I
no,
see how you get
I
there because
like rolling.
you got 46 in your head, and then you're like, all right, drop, add one and drop it. So
Mhm.
yeah, I can see how you get to 5d6.
Yeah, that was an oops.
We just did. I'm a big fan of point buy for like the tinkerer optimizer side of me.
Hmm.
But this last campaign we did 46 down, drop the lowest down the line, and we did
Oh,
it. We made two characters, but sitting down at the table and being like, who am I going to play today? Like,
mhm.
what is like having the character like reveal itself number by number, where it's like it's a very like it's a very different experience than I'm going to play a wizard and I'm going to perfectly
Sure.
craft myself a wizard. It's just like, well, I was thinking about wizard, but my intelligence is bunk. So, ooh, but my charisma's high. Maybe I'm going to do this or that. And yeah, it's interesting.
I love playing non-optimized characters.
God, yeah.
I love playing character like a low strength fighter
Hmm.
or a low intelligence wizard. I love playing against type because not in real life, and not like we're going for real life here, but you may want to aspire to be something and not have all the skills required to be great at that
Mm,
thing that you want to do.
mm.
So, I like playing or having those type of characters too. And people are like, well, why wouldn't you optimize a character to get the best roles? I'm like, well, life isn't optimized. So, it's fun playing with playing with hurdles,
Yep.
it's fun playing unoptimized. So yeah, that is interesting. I haven't done that in a while, but I think you've given me inspiration. The next time I play a character is to just go straight down and what
Nice.
I let the chips fall where they may.
That's it. That appeals to me so much. We're just like, oh, what do we got coming?
Yeah.
In your games,
Hmm.
generally, do you tack more towards balance or realism? Like like mechanical balance or realistic?
Realistic. I don't balance anything. I don't balance encounters. I as far as that goes, what's going to be there is going to be there, and if you guys are not ready for it, you just learn how to run. I don't know, like I don't have a problem like telling people like maybe you should run, and running is an option. I don't
Always.
understand why more people don't get up and go. Like if you,
Hmm.
a lot of times players are like, okay, there's this encounter in front of us, and the DM wouldn't put anything in front of us that we weren't ready to handle, so we're gonna stay here and fight to the end. I'm like, you don't have to. You're really, if you walk into a manticore lair or something, and or you stumble across a red dragon lair, and you don't have to sit there and duke it out with them. You can run. So no, I don't balance things out. The world happens the way it happens, and the players interact with it how they see fit, and they're more than willing to run if they want to. So now that being said, there's plenty of low level encounters for people to have. It also goes the other way where the players can end up coming across like things that they just wipe the floor with, and they're like, well, that wasn't very hard. I was like, well, there's a bunch of drunk people at a bar that you encountered that you mop the floor with them. That is what it is. And so I just kind of let the world go. I don't really balance stuff, which, and really with fifth edition, the CR system you kind of just have to wing it anyway, because that stuff it doesn't really bear out. The math doesn't. God bless people who can sit there and figure out challenge rating and how many hit points per encounter they should have, and all those numbers. I'm more more worried about the creating a good story and a good time than the math, you
Yeah,
know. So I
same. I will
balance.
I will say I ran Pathfinder second edition fairly recently, and it hums. Like that's tight. Like you do the math and it works.
Hmm.
It's tight. When the math doesn't work, it's not. I mean, that's not what I'm in it for. And when
Hmm.
you don't even get the payoff for doing it, it's yeah, slightly less interesting. So if you are a DM out there who's been running pretty straight as written or whatever, and you're thinking about making these more realistic, I'll do it. It's my favorite way of going about it. Jason just gave you a very exciting reason to do it, I think. but project it, right? So many players walk in being like, well, if it's in front of me, it's because I'm supposed to kill it. It's like, well, no, there's a million other, like, you can talk to this thing, you can run away, you can tiptoe around it, you can watch it and wait for it to fall asleep and study
Mhm.
its routines and figure out the perfect way to get the jump on it or to leverage its weaknesses or whatever. Like, there's so many different ways to approach any given situation. If you're only attacking,
You're missing a lot
you're
if you're
missing
only
a lot.
attacking.
You're not playing the whole game. You're missing
Yeah.
out on stuff.
That's the other thing. The other thing, a little side note as far as the things in the world. There, I will create problems that I don't have the solution figured out to.
Mm.
I'll like there's some sort of locked door, and I don't know. Like players are like, "How do we get past it?" I'm like, "I'm just gonna have to figure it out." I won't. Sometimes I won't even know, and I'll sort of
Mhm.
leave it up to the players to come up with a good idea, and I'll decide. I'm like, "Okay, that works," just based on what they've come up with, and I'll create problems in world that I don't do it all the time, um, but I'm always curious to see how players solve problems, because a lot of times they're much more creative at problem solving than I am. You know,
Mhm.
it's a lot of fun watching them interact with the world. And if they only kill things, it's not as it's not as fun
And
watching them
again,
interact.
you're outnumbered. There's more of them than there are of you. So let them, yeah,
Yeah.
let them outthink you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
We already answered flying characters. What is your favorite third-party tool? And I'm not going to count older
Oh,
edition stuff. I might have for another guest, but
s- so my favorite third party tool, and I knew you were gonna ask,
mm,
and I it is a supplement, and it's a 4 volume supplement on harvesting animals for their parts and components and materials. And it
Har
is,
is it do you know the name of it?
yeah, I'm trying to,
It's like Harvard. It's not Harvermeyer, but it's like
uh,
It's like the handy haversack guy, but it's not.
yes, yes.
Yeah,
And
I love that. Yeah, great.
mm,
Damn. It's in the description. Future Ryan will have figured it out and
good.
linked
Yeah.
it.
'Cause-
Um
and, if,
Harmon's
and
Harmond? Like Dan
Hammond's,
Harmon? Hammonds.
Hammond's,
Hammonds, yes.
yes, Hammond's harvesting
Hammonds,
guide.
yes.
Yes.
I think
And I think there's a
Hammond's Harvesting Handbook.
handbook. Yes.
And the
And I think,
OG, I'll link the OG one because that's like the straight monster manual, but I think there's one for each
yeah, there's
additional monster book. And like, ooh, because
the
players
last one.
ask that all the time.
Mhm.
Good
Yeah.
answer. Love that one.
And it's great. There's like recipes in there for and like different parts of the monster you can harvest, different gold, how much stuff costs, what you can material components that you can make. And old school, I will there is did you know, and I didn't know until a couple years ago, that back in the day, gems and different rocks had actual different uses in game. Like there's an opal that you can grind up and use for regrowing limbs, and
Mm.
there was this whole long uh, guidebook to harvesting gems and actual in-game uses for other gems instead of just like material components. They had things that you could do and combine different gems and different items with something else, and they had one-time use magical effects. And I didn't know that existed, and I found a copy of that book, and that's really interesting. That adds flavor to your game too. Instead of, oh, here's a sapphire worth 100 gold pieces. Well, that's all well and dandy, but you can take that sapphire, combine it with a bloodstone, and you can create this one-time use magical effect from the 2 gems. So that's an interesting one too. But that I'd have to. I don't remember. I don't remember what book that was, so I can't really quote it. But I'll have to dig that up. I can if you're interested in that, I could send that to you so you can take a look at it.
Yeah, if
Because
future Jason sends that to future Ryan in time, I'll also put that down there because
yeah,
that one I'm not familiar. But I love that stuff. I feel like I forget which one, but like that was in one of the Baldur's Gate games where like, and it's whatever. There's a million iterations of that where like
mhm,
specific gems and specific sockets do specific things, and
mhm,
like you get a taste of that in fifth edition in the material components to magic items, and I just
mhm.
yeah, I wish we had more of that. And to circle back to Hammond's Harvesting Handbook or
Hmm.
whatever it may be. HH, the Triple H.
HHH, Triple H.
That's a different thing.
Yeah. Oh no, that was the
You could.
Diamond Cutter. That was Diamond Dallas Page. I'm sorry, I got my wrestlers all wrong.
Oh well, that's yeah. Well, I wasn't playing D&D, but I was watching WWF in the '80s. I'm old school when it comes to that. So give me like Sergeant Slaughter and Hulk Hogan and
I was at WrestleMania 3.
go. All right, you
Yeah.
win.
I remember riding to that in the back of an old school station wagon.
That's
Like five
perfect.
people piled in the station wagon. Yeah, it was the 80s. Boy, none of us had a seatbelt on.
We
Three of us
used to
made it out
have
alive. It
we
was
used to
great.
have like pay-per-view pay-per-view parties
Hmm.
for WrestleMania and yeah. Oh, that's a different game, different
Yeah.
channel.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
Well,
no, no.
that's Tangents Table.
Yeah. Oh, that's the name of the show.
That's this. Yeah. In
Subtitle
that case,
Tangents.
the last pay-per-view I ordered was one of Mike Tyson's fights back in the day that lasted 14 seconds. I was like back in, yeah, I
Ooh,
was so disappointed. So disappointed. I mean, I didn't pay for it. My mom did, but
yeah,
yeah, I was still disappointed at that.
yeah.
That was the end of pay-per-view for me.
Tyson Holyfield is like when I hear pay-per-view, I think Tyson Holyfield's because that was like that's burned into my psyche
Hmm.
because I don't
You
know. I
bit
think
my, you bit my ear off. You
I
bit
was
my
like,
ear off.
because it's like in the moment, it's like it's famous now, but in the moment, it took a while to figure out like what the hell, like
Yeah.
what happened, like
It's
what?
like,
Because like the
what's going
announcers
on?
couldn't believe what was happening and didn't know if they should say it, and it happened
Hmm.
twice. It was a whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a whole thing.
Sorry. Yeah, it was a whole. That's. Oof. Yeah, that was
Um,
Tyson's a whole thing, and now he's getting ready to go fight Jake Paul. Well,
oh God, I hate
sheesh.
it, but I
I'm
can't
kind of
wait to
curious.
hear how. Yeah, exactly.
I'm kind of curious to see what happens. I
I've
mean, I'm not
grown.
gonna pay. I'm not gonna pay for it, but oh, I guess you don't have to. Is it on Netflix for free?
I don't know. Oh,
I
is it
don't
on
know.
Netflix? I don't even know.
I think it's on Netflix. I think it's on Netflix.
I've grown very good at ignoring, like controlling my focus lately. Pretty good.
Hmm.
Because I had to, not because I'm innately good at it, but I've had to just make a
Yeah.
lot of decisions to not pay attention to stuff. And that is certainly one of them that's like kind of breaking through. I'm like, I'm gonna find out what happens because I have hopes. Uh,
Mhm.
what is your favorite non D&D game? Not even editions, but what's your
Oh
favorite
my God.
TTRPG that
Dragonbane.
Dragonbane?
Yeah.
That's a popular answer right now.
Oh, well, now I just feel bad about it.
No.
This box set, I absolutely adore it. This gave me the old school D&D feels. Um, I love the leveling system where it's done by stats instead of like level 1, level 2, level 3.
Mm.
And it reminds me of old school D&D because the higher numbers are worse, lower numbers better. And then the art, Johan Egerkins, uh, amazing artist, and he also did Vaesen, um, which is sorry, I don't mean to have my head turned here.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is
Consult
my
to your time.
second favorite TTRPG, both from Free League, by the way. If I had to pick a favorite RPG company, it would be
Mm.
Free League.
Everything that
Um,
touches gold. Yeah.
oh, it's fantastic,
Yeah.
and this book is as much of a work of art as it is like an RPG book. And this is good. It's real rules light as far as the system goes, deadlier than Ravenloft. Um, it really like if you want to play something that's deadly, a low magic, extremely low magic, um, and it's a Nordic horror.
Mm.
It takes place in the 1800s in Norway and Sweden. So it's a tie between those two. I could call Cthulhu. Let's see what else is back. I could the whole bottom row is my favorite non D&D
So
RPGs.
so
But
so so sell me Dragon Man because that is like
sell you
what's
Dragonbane if
I
you
had
want. If
seen that cover a bunch of times, and in the last I would say like 2 months, it's been like oof, it's like it calling to me. It's like been on the list, but now it's like I'm
So
pull, I'm pulling the trigger.
I'll try to give you a bullet point here. If you want an old school low magic, not even low magic, if you want an old school focused RPG that feels like D&D
Mhm.
did back in the day, where only one or two classes have magic and magic doesn't proliferate the setting, and all the classes work together to create, they have like sailors is not a class, it's a profession. If you want that with a very um, I don't know how can I put this, a very old school RPG feel with modern RPG rules.
Mm.
Um, that's the game. It's the game to play if you're tired of modern uh RPGs. Like if you don't want to play, you want to play D&D, but you don't want to play Pathfinder, or you don't want to play D&D, but you want to keep it fantasy. That's it's really the system. Um, and the system is really the combat is the the initiative changes every round.
Mm,
Um, and there's only so much you can do, but you kind of have to think. I can't really get too much into the specifics of the combat because I'm still learning it. So I don't want to speak out of turn and get it wrong. But
mm,
from what I'm seeing is you kind of have to decide whether you're going to attack or defend, and you have to hold your action because you don't know what's coming up next round. So attacking is great, but it's also going to leave you defenseless if you come around and somebody's attacking you next round before you get a chance to have your next round of attack. So even though there may be less to do in combat, the way the mechanics work, the tension is heightened. So, but yeah, if you want sometime, Ryan, if you want to off camera and stuff, if you want to get together and look through the books and everything, I'd be more than happy to go
heck yeah.
over it with you because
Yeah.
it's what I want to play. It's what I've played, what I've showed to my friends in real life,
Mhm.
and what's next for us to jump into, and what I've really been wanting to play a lot of. So it's it's yeah, I think it's the winner for me out of what's next because I personally don't know if I'm going to do sixth edition because it seems like it's going to be too much, too close to fifth, and I played Pathfinder and it's fine, but if I want to play D&D, I'll play D&D. That's kind
Mhm.
of how I feel about Pathfinder. Um, because to me it just feels like 3.5, and I played that. So yeah.
I was very happy with 2E for a stretch because
Hmm.
like they it's highly tuned, like, right, you get like that 3.5 like Pathfinder first edition vibe.
Hmm.
It's not, at least yet, bloated. um but there's an answer for everything. There's systems in Pathfinder that I made up for myself in fifth edition because I wanted them, and
Hmm.
it's baked into the rules in Pathfinder. So there's a lot of good there, but it's the heaviest. It's a heavy lift,
Hmm.
and it actually made me tack towards more rule light stuff because I found myself saying no to a lot of ideas because there was a feat for that.
Right.
And someone could spec into that, and I'm penalizing them if I allow you to do this thing.
Yeah.
And it actually started to, all the creativity happens in character creation and then not in the gameplay. And I like variety. I ping pong back and forth between systems and schools of thought and
Hmm.
whatever. So like I like changeableness, and I loved it while I was playing it. My players loved it while they were playing it. But lately I am much more towards low magic. Like, okay, you cast one spell a day. It's not going to end every question for you. It's not going to solve every problem for you. You don't have cantrips. Like, you have to like make that spell count. First of all,
Right.
now it's special. And two, what else you got? Like I like putting it onto the player instead of putting it onto the character and
Right.
just pushing buttons.
Yep. No, I that is a very good way to put it. It's and that was how I felt with 3.5. Everything had a rule.
Mhm.
Everything had something referenceable, and there was a lot of times I loved my friends at the time, but I had a friend of mine, Paul, who was like a brother to me. But I tell you, it wasn't 4 or 5 times a game he was pulling out the player's handbook, flipping it on a table, and like, no, 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 you can't. There's a rule here for that. I'm like, I get it. Can we just play?
Yeah.
But everything 3.5 got to the point towards the end there where you could almost run it without a DM. It was just it was an answer for everything. And
Mhm.
it was fine, but it was very much it stripped a lot of the creativity out of the game for me. So I kind of got tired of running it. I never ran fourth edition. I have to admit that. Out of
No, same.
all the editions I got out of it. I was not playing at the time when fourth edition came around. But from what I understand from people, it's gotten a lot of a bad rap because it's cool to hate on fourth edition.
It's kind of a
Um,
renaissance going on in the last,
yeah, I
like,
think so.
yeah,
Yeah.
even before like the OGL nonsense. Fourth edition was, I mean, a very small, but percentage wise, it had a push there for a while, and I think it's still,
Well,
yeah.
looking back, I bought some of the books just to take a look at them. I'm like doesn't seem like it was a bad system. Seems like, if you change some of the names of stuff, like I see how people at the time were saying it was World of Warcraft at the table. And like, I
Hmm.
guess people made that argument. I heard it, but I didn't know enough about it to say whether that was a true statement or if that was just something that was said. But looking at the game itself, I think it looks pretty interesting, especially with the henchmen. The whole bunch of 1 HP enemies where like
Hmm.
people could mow through them. I was like that. I took that and started using that where, you know, people had people have henchmen and they're all low 1 HP. So I
Yeah,
thought that was interesting.
those monster rolls. So minions, yeah, I took minions,
Minions.
the popular. Well, no, I mean, I call it minions. I don't know if that's like
Oh,
the
okay.
official, but the yeah, 1 HP monsters are very useful in certain situations, and just like I do love looking through the monster manual and seeing like the brute and skirmisher, and like it's just it's flavorful. I know how to play the monsters, but it's also tactical,
Hmm.
in a way that like you don't necessarily get from a 5e stat block. And there's some gold, like the DMGs was real DMGs, I guess I should say, were really good from what I remember. But yeah, I never ran the thing.
And the Dragonomicons,
Oh yeah,
they were great. One of my favorite dragon ever was in there, the
what's that?
steel dragon.
Ah,
And I and I can't, in case we ever go back to the campaign that was running, I can't exactly right now talk about the ins and outs of the Steel Dragon because there's one, and the one fifth edition campaign that I was running is on hiatus, so I don't want to get too much into it. But if anybody has never checked out the lore on the Steel Dragon, it is by far the most interesting dragon out there, in my humble opinion. So take a look into it when you get a chance. I actually recommend. There's a video that was done on Steel Dragon by a person's YouTube channel that I'm blanking on now, and I can't remember, but they did a comprehensive look at the Steel Dragon, and I'm trying to remember who it was. I'll send it if I can remember. I'll send it to you. Maybe Ryan will put it in the link. Future
links.
Ryan will put it in the link down below.
My guess was it Jordan?
No, it wasn't Jordan.
Because yeah, that's my educated guess. It's some lore video that
It
just I'm
was,
playing the numbers.
but it was another one that when I say it, you can be like, oh yeah, him.
Mhm.
He has an accent. I believe he's Eastern European. Um, I can't remember his name.
Mr. Trask fits that
Yeah.
description and does monster stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, okay, cool, cool,
Yep.
cool, cool.
I think it was his.
I've
Yep.
never hooked. I mean, big fan. Never actually spoke to him, but he seems like I just love the energy that he's putting out there.
Oh yeah. It was. The his lore videos were kind of what I thought. I was like, you know what, I could do that, something akin to that for
Mhm.
Ravenloft, where
Mhm.
so it was kind of actually owe a lot of the Ravenloft stuff to he was an inspiration for as far as like presenting lore and stuff like that. So
Interesting,
yeah.
interesting.
So check the Steel Dragon out.
Check out the Steel Dragon. Check out that whole book. The Dragonomicon has
Oh
beautiful
yeah.
like art. It has that I don't even know what like anatomical drawings. I guess I guess that's the word
Mm-hmm.
for it. But it's
Yeah,
like it
like
feels like an in-world like it's really cool. I've actually used they let us DMs Guild people use some art, and I've ransacked the art that came from that because
I,
oh, it's good.
I love the books that feel like in-world supplements.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, I love those. Where you feel like you could drop it down at the table and your players could have a look at it because it's great. Because if players need in-world knowledge and they're like, oh, here you go, you can read this
Hmm.
paragraph here, and you
Hmm.
know this information. So those are nice. The ones that are flavored as real-world books.
Just yeah, with the right kind of player. So some
Hmm.
people will bounce off of it, but like you like what do I find on the bookshelf? And you're like, this.
Hmm.
What? All right, I'll give this back to you in a month.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
Yeah, just don't pay attention to stat blocks. Don't
yes,
look at the stat blocks. Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
All right. I almost feel like I'm cheating you by stopping now, but we
What?
definitely
No,
usually
that's okay.
five is the number, and
That's fine.
we went deep on the lightning round.
Oh,
So I'll tell you what, I'll give you a chance to roll more dice after the break. We're gonna
you
take a
got it.
little break, and we're gonna roll on the Game Master's Compendium of Explosive Creation, and we're gonna cook up a character and do some world building. We'll see what the lore is like when we're done with that.
Fantastic.
All right, be right back, everybody.
All right.
Hey, it's Future Ryan. Hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Definitely go check out the Ravenlore channel. Everything else we mentioned, including that, will be down in the description as well. Please like and subscribe while you're down there. It makes a huge difference. Up next, Jason and I are going to have some fun with the GM's Compendium of Explosive Creation, and you are invited. I hope I see you there. Until then, be kind, have fun.